Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of So Now You're a Teacher. Still. Yep, you are still now a teacher. I am your host, Lisa McConchy, international expert on brain-based learning, author, teacher, and mom of 3 who is literally dreaming of target runs now. Yep, we have reached that stage, folks. How about you? What are you dreaming of getting back into? It's going to be a great day. Hey, so in this episode 18, we are going to talk about the relationship with your child. In all my conversations with so many parents across this country and also internationally, I do a lot of work internationally as well. And I'm hearing a lot, we're getting to the phase where there's just a lot of strain between the parent and the child right now. And it is very understandable because of all that's going on and stress levels are really high. And so I am not a parenting expert. And so I'm not going to try to go there. All I'm going to do is talk to you about what I know as an expert on the brain and learning about the importance of the relationship between the teacher and the student. And right now, we as parents are in the role of being the teacher. Now, those of you teachers who are tuning in, I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us. This highly applies to you as well because your relationship with your students is critical right now. And the ways in which you build that relationship has changed dramatically. And so here's what we need to understand is that the brain of a learner is constantly asking itself at an unconscious level several questions. Think of it like as a gatekeeper question. And when a student, your child or a student, answers no to one of these questions, boom, it basically shuts the gate and either slows down or completely impairs learning. And one of those questions, the first one that I share when I work with teachers around this world is this. This is the first question that students must be able to answer with a firm yes in order for learning to really happen. The question is this: is my teacher an ally or an adversary? Is my teacher an ally or an adversary? Is my teacher on my side, on my team? Does he or she have my back, willing to do whatever it takes to help me succeed? Now, what the research says is that us as teachers are very quick to answer this question. Well, of course, yes. Of course. I love my students. And here's some really interesting, I'll just share one thing. I'll share one piece of research that I find really interesting, and it really confronts me as an educator and as a mom. So there's one researcher, and remember, everything that I share is always coming from peer-reviewed, high-quality research. I'm not just like some junk research. So remember these like notes that got passed around in elementary school, middle school, whatever. Do you like me? Yes or no? We folded them up in like cool shapes and stuff like that. So I don't know if you ever wrote one of those or received one. I never got one, but that's beside the point. So there's actually a researcher who took that question and did a slight modification on it. And he didn't fold them up in fancy like heart-shaped papers or anything like that. But he did survey a very large amount of students. This is the question that he asked. Does your teacher like you? Yes or no? I've got good news and bad news. There's actually very bad news, but we're not going to talk about that today. The good news is this. No, let's start with the bad news. The bad news is, does your teacher like you? Yes or no? The bad news is there were more no's from students than the teacher anticipated. Which brings us to the good news, and the good news is that there was more no's than the teachers anticipated. Meaning the teachers anticipated more yeses. Now, why would a teacher anticipate more yeses? Because they actually do like their students and they do care about the students. So the discrepancy is what's so fascinating and really helps us to confront something about like the teacher-student relationship. And that is, teachers love their students, but not all students know. a lot of students don't get the message that their teacher actually cares for them. So it's possible that now as parents, now that we're in the role of teachers, that we're experiencing this same dynamic as well. That you are working your butt off to help your kid while you're also trying to like manage your household, do your own work while you're at home, all of the things, right? And your kid might think that you are just the enemy. Even though you're like doing everything and you're trying so hard and you're trying to be helpful, it's possible that something is lost in communication. And so the reason why this is so important is because the relationship that the teacher, whoever that is, a parent or the actual teacher, the relationship the teacher has with the student has the ability, when it's healthy, positive, and strong, that relationship has the ability to double the amount of learning that student receives. Double. We're not going to get into the actual research and all those numbers, but I do have all of that research, and I could actually probably put a link to an article I've written on it. I will do that, note to self. So it matters. It matters not just because of the relationship side of like being a parent and a kid and wanting to like stay healthy relationally during this crisis, but it also matters for their learning. And that's the part that I can focus on as an expert, is that your relationship with your child, teacher to student, the new dynamic that exists, can impact their learning dramatically. It's a gatekeeper question. So how do we make sure that our kids know that we are their ally? Well, what the research says is that we just have to be more explicit, more overt in our communication that we are the ally. So we say things like this. We say it out loud. I care about you. I want us to work together. What do you need to hear from me? Or what do you need to see me do so that you know that I am on your team? We ask these questions, we listen to the student, to our children, and then we follow through. And we just continually, day after day after day, remind them, this is important. It's so important that you and I stay on the same team as we do this whole thing called school at home. I want us to emerge from this phase stronger in our relationship. I'm committed to this. I care about you. I care about your learning. Over and over and over again. So grab a piece of paper, write down like 10 of these different options that I've shared with you, and just keep it somewhere so you can remind yourself to always be explicitly saying it to your kids. If you're in that place, especially with those teenagers and those tweens, where things might be getting a little bit heated at home with the relationship. Oh man, hang in there. It's worth it. The relationships matter on so many different levels. And this is just the one angle that I can take on in terms of learning and the brain. So that's it for now. Be their number one ally in their learning and in everything else in their lives right now. You are doing an amazing job. Please give yourself a pat on the back and just recognize all the great things that you're doing for your kid. They are so lucky to have you. I mean, even the fact that you're like watching this video right now, that you're like out spending your time, whatever spare time you might have, to like seek out some more information really says a lot about you. So thanks for being who you are. And until next time, hang in there, folks. Take a deep breath. You know that oxygen, it's good for the brain.